Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Because I talk about my pet-only reptiles, in particular my leopard geckos, a lot on this channel, I figured I'd make a video all about what the term pet-only means when referring to reptiles. Before we get started, I ask that you please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and away we go. So what does the term pet-only mean? Now I'm going to be referring specifically to like pet-only and reptiles because that's what I keep. This term might be applicable to other animals as well, but I'm specifically speaking about reptiles for this video. So the term pet-only refers to an animal that cannot or should not be bred because it would harm them or create unviable or low quality offspring. So I say cannot and should not because there's actually a lot of people who will still breed pet-only animals, and also people who don't even realize they're breeding pet-only animals, like when they buy their leopard geckos from a pet store and then let them breed at home. That is a situation where more pet-only animals are being created, but that's actually not a good thing. That's a whole separate topic. We're going to talk about like animals that we know are specifically referred to as pet-only. So like, for example, if you are buying a reptile from a breeder and they say, oh, this one is pet-only, so it's great for people who don't want to breed. What does that mean? So I say cannot and should not because there are situations where there are breeders who will breed animals that are not like widely considered breeder quality. I'll give an example. The Enigma leopard gecko has a neurological disorder associated with its morph. This has been proven time and time again. And most ethical breeders will not touch the Enigma morph because they don't want to perpetuate like harm by creating more enigmas. However, there are breeders who continue to breed them. And so I say should not because yes, the enigmas can like literally physically breed, but they should not be bred, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the reasons why a reptile will be considered pet only. So one reason why a reptile might be considered pet only is because it has unknown genetics. So a perfectly healthy, abled reptile with unknown genetics. Now this is not going to count when it comes to like a wild caught animal that someone's trying to breed in captivity. That's a whole separate subject. This is more about like animals who have multiple lineages, right? Like known genetics and where morphs are concerned. Like if you have a fire skink, there's no morphs that I'm aware of fire skinks, so people just breed fire skinks to fire skinks. But when it comes to particular morphs of like ball python, leopard gecko, whatever, so people are familiar with crossing two things. Like you want to make sure that you know the genetics before you're allowing those two animals to breed. And so if you have an animal that you bought from a pet store or you got from a breeder and it's a pet only and the genetics weren't disclosed to you or anything like that, then you don't want to breed that animal because it has unknown genetics, and therefore you are just creating more pet-only animals because if you don't know the genetics, then you don't know the genetics of the offspring. It's also dangerous to cross two pet-only animals that you don't know the genetics of, even if they're completely healthy and able-bodied animals, because there are some genetics when crossed that can create unviable or unhealthy offspring, and so it's not something you want to do. If a breeder is rehoming a pet-only animal, or if you get a rescue off of Craigslist, that's also pet-only unless they disclose all the genetics to you. If you buy an animal from a pet store, that is a pet-only. So in any situation where you don't know the animal's genetics, that is considered a pet-only. Another situation of pet-only can be the animal has bad genetics. And what do I mean by bad genetics? It just has a lot of inbreeding in its lineage, or it has like a problematic morph like the lemon frost leopard gecko, the spider ball python, the Enigma leopard gecko, those sorts of things. My dog's gonna come say hi. Come here. Up, 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 up. Good boy. Oh, you can't even see him because he's so short. He's kind of a bigger dog, but because he's so short, you cannot see him. It's okay. What's going on? He's got his little Halloween bandana on because he's festive. Because he's festive. He's festive boy. He's upset because I'm filming. I'm not giving him attention. It's okay. It's okay. No, no, don't do that. It's all right. Yeah, it's a good boy. It's a good boy. Yeah, it's a good boy. You can see his tail wagging. It's a good boy. It's a cute boy. Yes, he is. Aw, hi, honey. It's a good boy. So while a lot of pet-only reptiles that have problematic morphs or inbred genetics, they can be bred like physically, it's not a good thing to breed them, and a lot of people still will. Hold on, I'm gonna put him down. As an animal becomes more inbred, you'll be able to notice things like physically about them that differ from other non-inbred varieties of that species. So for example, like my bearded dragon Franklin, he's got really big eyes that are not normal for a bearded dragon. That's considered something that like isn't desirable, and so he would be pet only. I know big eyes is a thing in leopard geckos as well. There's also like neurological issues that can be from inbreeding. There's also reptiles that have like really bad growth, could be from inbreeding as well. But in general, reptiles that come from inbred lineage or are problematic morphs are considered or should be considered pet only, even though plenty of people still breed them anyway. Another reason why an animal might be considered pet only is because it has some sort of physical defect that is not related to its genetics. For example, my most recent gecko, who I actually did name Davy, well, it's Davos, but I call her Davy. She actually has like fine genetics as far as I'm aware, but an incubation fluctuation caused her to have some deformities, and for that reason, she's considered pet only. It's not because she couldn't physically produce viable offspring, it's because it would be like harmful for her potentially to have produced them in the first place. And also, when you have like breeder quality animals, you want them to look really good, like robust, good colors, like alert, aware, clean eyes. Like you want them to look solid, especially if you're like a breeder and you want to establish a good reputation in the reptile world. You want your breeding animals to look really great. That way they create really great looking animals, really healthy looking animals. And so if you have a bunch of like disfigured animals that are producing your offspring, it's not good. So like for example, a person can have like a reptile that has like a tail kink when it's born, and it's perfectly capable of breeding, but a lot of breeders will still say, no, I'm going to put that one to a pet only home in favor of an animal that does not have a tail kink. Again, there are plenty of people who still breed animals with tail kinks, but a lot of them will put them out to pet only homes, and so that's another reason why an animal can be considered pet only. In some cases, the birth defect can like preclude them from being able to reproduce healthily. In some cases, like a female reptile might be too small to be able to safely carry eggs, or like for some reptiles they have live births, but because of their small stature, they might be unable to produce like healthy offspring without it harming them. So that's another example of a birth defect that might cause them to be considered pet only for the safety of the animal. Reptile can also be considered pet only because they are a retired breeder. So many breeders will have an animal for a few seasons, or they'll trade with another breeder and they'll have them like each for a season. But they'll have a few seasons that they're being bred for and then they retire. The reason that they become retired is because after so many years it becomes unsafe or ineffective to continue to breed them. Like sometimes they will produce less offspring, or their health will decline, or it's just for the betterment of the animal. Like they don't want to continue breeding that animal because as they get older it's more risky. For like leopard geckos, I know that they only breed them for the first few years of their life and then they become retired breeders. Retired breeders can also happen like really early, like someone might breed an animal and then realize it doesn't lay the best eggs and then boom, pet only. And that could happen after just one season. So again, another reason that an animal can become pet only is because it is a retired breeder or doesn't lay the best eggs. Or I should also say not just eggs, but live bears. I always like don't think about that because all my reptiles that have ever laid offspring have been eggs. Another reason that a reptile can be considered pet only is because it's ugly. I mean that with sincerity. I have seen people rehome geckos, like a crested gecko. My crested gecko Rayla is rehomed to me. She lays duds. She's like a healthy weight, you know, but she's considered ugly. There's nothing remarkable about her. She's got bad crests. I feel so bad. Like, I think she's lovely, but she's considered ugly. So she was rehomed to me as a pet only because she's ugly. Sorry, I feel so bad, but it's so funny. There's nothing actually wrong with her. She's just not aesthetically pleasing. You're gonna have that. You're gonna have reptiles that are just like not that attractive, or they don't have like the best features to continue to breed them. Like for example, like for crested geckos, you want them to have big heads, big crests. She doesn't have that. She has a small head, no crests. In fact, all of my crested geckos are pet only except Roshi, and they all have small crests. Another reason that you might not want to breed a reptile is because they were a rescue or they have some sort of health issue, either past or ongoing, that would make them an unsafe breeder. So for example, my gecko Rue, she's a crested gecko. She was born with metabolic bone disease, and then I also have my gecko Elia, who's a leopard gecko, and she has metabolic bone disease from neglect from a prior home. For those who don't know, reptiles with metabolic bone disease, once their bones break or bend, change shape, they don't ever go back to normal, and that animal could never be considered breeder quality for that reason. I think I covered all the reasons. Let me know if I missed any. I'm sure I did. I have like a note in front of me of like all the reasons, and like I like wrote down each of my geckos. Why is this gecko pet only? Like trying to figure it out, or not just my geckos, but reptiles in general. And if you want a pet only animal, there's tons and tons of pet only reptiles that are available from breeders, available from Craigslist, available from rescues. You just have to know where to look. Make some connections in the community, like breeders that you like, and say, hey, I'd really love a pet only. If you have one, let me know. Or like reach out to a rescue through Craigslist or Pet Finder. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you found this informational and insightful and not too controversial. I appreciate your time. I will see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah, please check the links below and all that jazz. Whatever. Anyways, bye.